Ooh, welcome to Two for the Show, the movie review show from Nerded Here First. I'm Ryley Trahan, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Deepak Chitnis.
Hey, Deepak Chitnis here, reminding you to follow us on socials. We're at Nerded. Is it right now? Did you want me to do it?
Oh, it's
Oh, okay.
that goes before the song, Bruno. I just want you to throw that in as the cold open.
All right. You unspecific assholes.
I said other than when I said your name. It was very specific. Somebody was enjoying the track.
Wires crossed. All right.
We're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
It's better not awaken anything in me.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
I'm responsible for my own happiness. I can't even be responsible for my own breakfast.
We have Santa Claus. Assemble.
Ooh, welcome to Two for the Show, the movie review show from Nerd Here First. I'm Ryley Trahan, and as always, I am joined by my co-host Deepak Chitnis.
Hello.
And producer Bruno, working the runs and twos, making sure we sound good and look good. Bruno, how's it going? Excellent. We wanted to let you know before we get started here about all the stuff going on, not just on this show, but across the network. Coming up very soon, we are going to be doing a preview of the next edition of Dungeons & Dragons. That's right, we got our hands on the player handbook before it was released. We have all designed next-gen characters. We're going to be talking you through the rules, talking you through the differences and all that in a game where we actually play by the new rules. Jack is DMing that. It's going to be me, Bruno, and Sterling, so be looking for that wherever you find our stuff. Additionally, we are getting into award season here. We're starting to take a peek at what we might be talking about early next year come Oscar time. So don't forget that this very show is going to be reviewing all that stuff. And we don't want you to miss a thing. So Deepak, how can you make sure you don't miss anything coming from the channel?
Oh, I know the answer to this. Follow us at Nerdy Here First on Twitter/X, on Instagram, and on TikTok.
That's right.
At Nerded Here First.
And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/nerdherefirst, where you can watch us talk through all this stuff for free. It's just right up there. Also, if you want to just send some points our way, because we love to see the hits on the website, you can also watch all this stuff at nihf.com. You can also sign up over there to be I was test running this one this week. What do you guys think of an NIH friend? You can be an NIH friend of the show, and
now I have friends.
That's exactly right. So if you head over to nihf.com for $5 a month, you can get access to all of our bonus content and the full back catalog of any bonus stuff we've done in history, which isn't necessarily the best plug because it means you can put it off until later and still get all the stuff, but you don't want to miss it. And especially with awards coming up, and we've got some new things planned. I've been deep in Lord of the Rings mode, trying to plan some bonus content and things like that. So you don't want to miss anything there. So make sure you head over to nihf.com and subscribe either for free by just typing in your email or get the bonus stuff by throwing us $5 a month. All right. Administrative bullshit out of the way. Guys, I would like to talk to you about a little film I watched this week called, let me see if I can do it again. I said it before we started recording. Twilight of the Warriors, Walden. Now, this is a Hong Kong action film that came out this year. It is a martial arts film, and it is just rip-roaring start to finish, guys. The basic plot is there is a young man who is a refugee in Hong Kong in the 80s, and he gets tied up with the triads, and to try and escape them, he goes into the walled city, which is a real place that existed, and it's very, it's done very great through production design and things like that. And in the walled city, he starts to find enemies and adversaries and starts to sort of figure out what his place in, this Hong Kong triad gang war is. There is some incredible action in this movie. I think, however, Deepak, the big thing I wanted to talk to you about this flick is our boy Sammo Hung is he had a credit as, this was something I'd never seen in a movie before, and part of me thought maybe it was a translation thing, but that didn't really make any sense. I just loved it. I wanted to call it out. Special guest star Sammo Hung in the opening credits, which I really loved because that's something I've only ever really seen deployed in television. But it has kind of these two slates of actors. It has a group of old veteran martial arts stars who are playing kind of the heads of the triad, and then it has this group of relative newcomers, and it's a real passing of the torch movie. Over the course of the film, predictably, most, if not all, of the older generation die during the fights, and sort of the climax of the movie is what do these dogs do once they're off the leash? Because it's all these hot-headed young men who really just want revenge and things like that, and without their mentors to guide them, they really get into some pretty intense fights. So A, it was a passing of the torch thing, which I just feel like we don't get anymore. And B, it was just an incredible martial arts film. The fighting was great. It amplified over the course of the movie. So it starts off with a police academy homage, a bus fight, like the classic Jackie Chan style, which Sammo Hung choreographed. Police Story. I said Police Academy.
Right.
I meant Police Story.
I know
So it starts off with a bus fight, just like that one in the opening of Police Story, and over the course of the movie escalates to some really, subtle, but some really subtle wire work and sort of like some paranormal aspects to the fight and people having like powers. At one point, the phrase "we have to find his weak spot" was spoken, but not in a way that made me laugh or anything. I was just like, hell yeah, we got to find his weak spot. We got to take this guy down.
Well, it was translated. Who knows what the actual line
Well,
was.
yeah, for sure. But I did think the subtitles I thought were very good. This was something that I was on the lookout for when I saw Kill earlier this year. This movie actually reminded me a lot of Kill in the fight choreography and in some of the ways they chose to stage the fights geographically. But it also is a movie with a lot of heart. Like, it's a simple story, but it's a really emotional story. I think there's a lot in the plot that talks about Hong Kong and sort of the search for how Hong Kong has always been under colonial rule, right? They've never experienced home rule in their life. They were handed off from British colonialism to Chinese occupation. And it's sort of the story of these individuals trying to find their own freedom kind of during this transition point. The subtitle "Walled In" obviously refers to the walled city, but I also really, really hope that it is a tease for another one of these, because it was really great. It came out on VOD yesterday as we're recording this after having a really short theatrical run, but now it's available for rent or purchase on all digital outlets. I rented it for $5 last night. It's 2 hours. It's basically 85% awesome fighting, but all of it is really, like we say about some of our favorite martial arts films, Deepak. Like, it's all of the fights are really grounded in the emotional stakes of the movie. A lot of the, I would say all of the fights and the way that the characters interact are parallel their positions of power during the story, their friendships and sort of the friction between different characters throughout the story. I don't want to go too much into details of the actual plot itself, because there are a couple unexpected, it's like in the first 45 minutes, but there are a couple like revelations that make you realize what the actual stakes of this movie are that you're not necessarily expecting right off the bat. So yeah, it was just a really, really great movie. I had a fun time watching it. I thought it was like, it's rare that I equally enjoy a movie and then like that was a quality film, right? And I think that this came in high on both those bars. So I really wanted to recommend folks check out Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. Is 2 hours well spent, in my opinion.
It's rare that Ryley enjoys a movie that's also good.
Listen. I know where my tastes lie.
I mean, no, I added that to the list just based off of what he said. I added that to the list for the fighting scenes alone. I'm always here for that too.
Yeah, man, it's such good stuff. Early on, there's a guy who beats a woman to death, and it's sort of the first time. Yeah, this guy's not a good guy. This is a bad dude that we do not like. Mm-hmm. And then our four sort of core, like our Avengers, basically, right? Our team of four meet each other and come into league with each other and become friends with each other because they all separately show up on the same time to kill this man. And they're like, great, let's just murder him together. And at one point they tie, each of the four of them is holding a rope. Each rope is connected to one of these guys' limbs, and they just yeet him up into the air and slam him down onto the concrete over and over again. And that is by far not the coolest thing you see in this movie. So yeah, excellent fight stuff for sure. Deepak, what'd you watch this week, my guy?
Not what I have watched, but what I'm going to watch as of this recording. Today's the premiere of season 4 of Slow Horses on Apple TV Plus. I've caught up with that show in the last few months. The Gary Oldman starring show about kind of MI5 rejects, and they don't get let go from MI5, but when you botch an operation or you do something stupid, they send you to Slough House, which is sort of remedial. You get really bad assignments and you're quote unquote in MI5, but your badge doesn't even give you access to the main MI5 building. Like that's how low on the ladder you are.
It's like
but
in
of course,
Silicon Valley when they used to send guys to the roof.
Sure. Or, I mean, it's not really the train station in Yellowstone, but it might as well be. And yeah, I mean, they've, despite, the characters being sort of the screw-ups, they've managed to thwart pretty severe terroristic plots against Britain 3 times now, going on 4. This season, they've added Hugo Weaving as the heavy, which is always fun. Haven't seen him in anything for a while because he tends to do a franchise movie and then shit on the franchise and then never be seen in that franchise again. He did it all. He did it recently with Lord of the Rings. Also, he didn't shit on Lord of the Rings. He basically said that it was not a fulfilling artistic achievement for him when they asked him about like coming back to the TV shows, whatever, which is understandable, I guess. But anyway, yeah, Slow Horses is out now, season 4. I've never watched it as it's actually come out live, so I don't know if it's a week to week or they just dump it all at once. I think Apple tends to go week to week.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah.
My dad has been trying to sell me on it for years. I believe it is a week to week.
When I went to India in August of 2022 to get married, I had downloaded the whole first season of it on my phone to watch at some point, thinking I would have time to watch a whole TV show. And these are not long seasons. They're 6 episodes, I think, each one. So, I mean, it started in early 2022, and they're already on season 4 of it.
Oh, wow.
So they're doing it almost like every 9 months or something.
That used to be the way. That used to be
Yeah.
the way.
So they keep it short. It's basically a long movie broken up into 6 episodes, but good cast, good production value. Gary Oldman, of course. Kristen Scott Thomas is his boss. Kristen Scott Thomas, we all know from The English Patient and Mission Impossible and all sorts of stuff. River Cartwright. Jack Loudon is the main actor. The girl from House of the Dragons is in there briefly at the beginning of the show. Yeah, a lot of familiar faces. So good stuff.
Speaking of Hugo Weaving, did you see that Ian McKellen is banging the drum to come back as Gandalf for the Hunt for Gollum?
He pretty much
yeah,
confirmed it's happening.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be the case. Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't bring him back, and I'm sure he has the rapport with Andy Serkis, so let it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Gandalf fits into that story, doesn't he?
Yeah, Gandalf
figure
sends Aragorn on the titular hunt. So yeah,
Yes.
if we can get Vigo back, I'm even happier. But yeah, I see no reason why McKellen shouldn't, as he said, be wearing the
who's
pointy
younger
hat and
Aragorn
beard.
now? Who gets cast as younger Aragorn?
Who gets cast as younger Aragorn now? That is a very good.
Is it that Craven the Hunter guy, or he's going to be busy wearing a tux? I think so.
Sometime, apparently, rumor has it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen hide nor hair. Yeah, sure, why not? Throw him in there. Bruno, talk to us about what were you digging into this week in the old stack?
Oh God, yeah. So, well, not the old stack. I picked this up last week, and here's the thing: crossovers aren't supposed to work in comics.
No.
They never do. I picked up.
I know where you're going with this, and I'm very excited.
I picked up.
Is this Godzilla versus Justice League?
No. Well, that is actually another exception, but I'll visit that further down the line. I picked up Predator versus Black Panther a couple weeks ago, and it was okay, but the art wasn't really all there. What I really want to talk about from last week is Aliens versus Avengers, and this was so much better than I expected. First things first, it's by Jonathan Hickman and the art is by Asad Ribic. And Jonathan Hickman, for anyone who's a comic book reader, is not a name that should be associated with crossovers. He's a master of world building. That's all mainly what he focuses on. A lot of his comic books sometimes read as actual books just because of the amount of information that he can put into a panel sometimes. But
his X-Men run was something, man.
Oh yeah. But he really just took the concept of aliens and just applied it to the Marvel universe and made something that was just blew proportions for me, full. The book opens with just androids and going through this very methodical process about how they're just spreading xenomorphs throughout the whole universe. They just found out a way through wormholes to just send a bunch of xenomorphs all over the place, and we're basically taking place in a post-apocalyptic scenario where xenomorphs made it to Earth. It's even given me a little bit of a primer for Alien Earth next year. Who knows? But yeah, it's really good. It follows the main character is Bruce Banner in his like 60s or 70s, and it's just him trying his very hardest to just solve this problem and being one of the last few survivors with Captain Marvel. But yeah, I generally couldn't speak any higher about this. Miles Morales is in it as well, and he has a Venom suit, and that plays into it a lot when you see how the symbiotes interact with the aliens. And just in case you guys were worried about the xenomorphs being nerfed in the Marvel Universe, I did pick up this variant cover by Scotty Young, who always likes to make these little fun comics. And in this, you can see Captain America has a face hugger on his head, and he's talking with Hulk and Captain Marvel. And he basically goes, on a scale of absorbing man to Thanos, how much of a problem is this? And Captain Marvel responds, I'm going to be honest. We're zipping right past the Mad Titan and landing somewhere past a Galactus.
Well, I'm so glad Disney bought Fox that we can get this now. We can get aliens fighting Avengers because they're owned by the same company. No, that's good. I mean, this sounds like a good follow-up to Alien versus Batman versus Predator versus Superman, which is also excellent.
I highly recommend it. I will be honest that issue 1 is $8, but it is a pretty beefy issue. It's definitely longer than most issues nowadays, and you have time to catch up because I believe issue 2 doesn't come out until November, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah, it's off and away with those big issue ones. I am also excited. Next month, and Bruno, I think I got my month swapped, and this is why I thought this might be what you were talking about. But just so Deepak is also aware that it exists. Coming soon, Godzilla versus Great Gatsby from DC Comics. So everybody prepare yourself for that one.
No, I did not know about this one.
Daisy's gonna finally get what's coming to her.
Talking about the green light. All right, so let's get into the meat of the episode here. As I said, we're going to break format a little bit. We're going to go through some of the stuff that we're really excited about for the rest of the year. We're dialing up the old hype meter. We're seeing who's excited about what and how much. And I wanted to start with a movie that you'll be hearing about on this podcast soon. It is out by the time you're hearing this, in all likelihood. It is Tim Burton's Beetlegeist, which has been getting good reviews, which is interesting and confusing, given we're all kind of having a visceral reaction to the current era of Tim Burton directing. But I have to tell you guys, if I really shoot from the hip here, I think that there is at least a little bit of hope for this movie, if only because from everything I've seen, haven't seen any of the classic Burton CGI goop messing up the frame. And I feel like that's always where he goes off the rails, is when you give him a shit ton of money and he can use it to just make a messy potion concoction, like whatever the hell that Alice in Wonderland movie was. If this film sticks to practical effects, if it relies on its actors to be funny and interesting, I don't know that it'll match the glory of the first one, much like a couple other movies we'll talk about on this list. But I do think it has a potential to be a good and satisfying sequel, but it doesn't sound like either of you guys are too...
Well,
the hype meter looks low for you guys on Beetlejuice.
My only gripe is that you already said his name twice, and so now we can't even speak it for the rest of the time.
Yeah. He didn't say it properly. I think we're good.
That's fair. No, I enjoyed the original. I actually really enjoyed the original. I was rewatching it last week, but I'm always going to have issues with these sort of things, and I'm always going to have like
Lego sequels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm always going to take it with a grain of salt, regardless. I'm like Alien Romulus like exceeded my expectations, but I don't know if Beetlejuice would. Yeah, that's about all that I have to say. What was the last Tim Burton thing I saw aside from Beetlejuice?
Did you see Dumbo?
No.
I think that was his last movie, right? No. Was Dumbo?
I think
no, he did something between that.
I think his latest movie I saw may have been Dark Shadows.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That might be an appropriate tapping out point, though. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I don't it's a conversation that we always have about Burton, Deepak, and it's like because he fits a certain template for a certain type of director, right? Which is massive success early on in their career with meager budgets and brilliant vision and like a real style. These guys then get a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want, to quote my favorite podcast. And in the case of Burton, he takes that money and I mean, he puts it all on screen in a sense, but it never, what we want from him is the tactile. We want like to feel like we're in the world of his sick and twisted mind.
No, not
And
necessarily. I mean, I don't think it's a CGI versus practical thing because his best movie is still Sweeney Todd, and there's plenty of CGI in Sweeney Todd. I think he just doesn't have. I mean, a lot of it is personal taste with the gothic stuff just not doing much for me. But then on top of that, it's he doesn't tell interesting stories. His stories tend to be the same thing. It's the outcast, the misfit who's just trying to be loved, and you get that story told a million times to you with Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder. It gets old after a while. And the other thing with Beetlejuice specifically, that's one time I said it, is that it's kind of like the Twisters thing where I remember the original from when I was a kid, but it did not have any sort of staying power with me. It's not one that I have a lot of nostalgic, sentimental attachment to. So that's clearly what they're banking on. I go to the theaters and now more often than I used to, and every single time there's been some new trailer for this that does nothing for me, and I don't know that it's doing anything palpable for anyone else in the theater. It's clearly legacy sequel plus throw Jenna Ortega in there because she's going through her J-Law, Alicia Vikander.
Well, and the two of them are making.
Yeah, so
the two of them are also making Mad Bank. They're on Netflix doing pairing up in that Addams Family show, right?
In Wednesday, yeah. So again, it's just kind of we have the people and the resources, and there's apparently the metrics have told them that there's a nostalgia craze for Beetlejuice now. That's the second time. So that's the only reason this movie exists, and it's not made for me. That's why I don't care. But if it does well, great. I just have no faith in Burton.
I'm gonna let you guys pick other movies kind of off the top fifth or so of that list to talk to me about. But I also wanted to mention, Deepak, I'm liking this theory that you seem to be working with, and I think you're correct. The three of us being in geographically separate places might mean that we each get 3 bites at that apple, right? Because Keaton couldn't show up.
Is that a chance we want to take? Do we want?
No. I think that's fair, and we should be smart about it. I think I am mostly invested in it for the Keaton of it all. Of course, my Burton that is closest to my heart are the Batman films. No surprise there to anyone.
That a couple years ago or last year, right? With Flash.
Yeah, but that was garbage, and I like him being back in that character with Burton at the helm. I'm at least curious. I'm not going to say that I'm like chomping at the bit. If we weren't going to be doing a podcast, I don't know that I would go to see it, but I will go to see it this weekend to report back to our faithful. And Deepak, maybe we'll do a Twisters again. Maybe you see if you watch the first one, see if the first one does anything for you. I'll go see the second one. We'll compare notes.
All right, yeah, maybe.
All right, Deepak, Bruno, whoever's ready, hit me with something on our hype list that's drawn your attention.
You're talking about from the top of that?
Yeah.
So if I take it just through the end of this month, September, the only two that really pop out to me for different reasons. Well, actually, is Megalopolis in September?
It is.
It is.
Yeah, that's the big one, I think, for me. Let's set aside the Coppola of it all as far as his off-screen persona.
Continues to be litigated. We can't comment on ongoing cases.
Right. And I think we did kind of address this. If true, it's disgusting, and he shouldn't be rewarded for it. At the same time, it's sort of the push and pull we have, or at least I have, with like Woody Allen movies, for example. Like, no, I wouldn't want him babysitting my kids, but the dude makes really good, artistically fulfilling movies. Sort of the same thing here. I don't know that I want Coppola babysitting my daughter, but he is responsible for 3 or 4 of the all-time greatest movies. So if he has a new one out, it's potentially his last.
Well, that's the thing. There's also the pull of it is Megalopolis, right? Like it's
the one he's tried to make for 30 years.
He is one of the greatest to ever do it with a passion project that by all accounts has gone completely off the rails, and he's totally lost the thread on. Like, how am I not going to go see? Like,
yeah, and it's getting an IMAX distribution. So of course we're going to talk about it here. And it's a movie that I am sure, whatever opinion we have about it, this year is not the opinion we are going to have about it when you inevitably hear us talking about it in 10 years, telling you that you guys slept on this masterpiece, because we'll still be doing this. And the other one, or rather the other two that I have my eye on for different reasons, there's Transformers 1, which is clearly Paramount trying to do the Spider-Verse Teenage Mutant thing with the Transformers property.
Not gonna work.
Taking that to kind of kid size, animated. I don't think it's going to work either. I think the trailer is just kind of, it gives me, they're trying to do Marvel vibes, but they're not going to get there. And then we have Wolves coming from Apple/Sony, Clooney and Pitt back together. Probably not going to be a good movie, but
Back together, and it's getting bad reviews. Yeah, that's a wild one, right? The Transformers one of it all has me curious. I haven't. This is a interesting twist of fate for us. I've not seen, I don't think, any of the ads for Transformers one.
Oh, every time I go, I get trailers for that and for the other one that I mentioned.
Oh yeah. Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
Beetlejuice.
Is it?
And Kingdom of the Apes for a while.
Is it the? I've only seen stills. Is the animation sort of similar to the kind of blocky CG anime that Netflix seems so fond of these days?
Which one?
A little bit. The Transformers animation. It's clearly based on the G. It's literally like they've taken the G1 cartoon from the 80s and tried to just do it with CG.
Yeah,
brush
I
it up
kind
a
of
little
give
bit.
them. Yeah, I kind of give them some credit for not like over designing or over engineering things. I think you do that and you get too far into like Michael Bay territory, which is too like real world, I think, for some of these. So I don't think it looks bad from that perspective. It just feels like the humor is trying very hard to do that, like setup punchline, snarky, undercutting the dramatic.
Isn't it
moment of the
funny that we're
situation.
robot cars?
Right.
Yeah, that kind of thing, and you can kind of very obviously tell, oh, that's Chris Hemsworth, that's Scarlett Johansson, that's Brian Tyree Henry.
I saw like a promo video of like I'm blanking on his name. Keegan-Michael Key.
Chris Hemsworth.
No,
Optimus Prime.
Keegan-Michael Key. He's playing Bumblebee, and it was him in the voice booth, and he just like yells into the mic, "We are Transformers!" And I'm like, if that's an actual line in the movie, I might just leave the theater.
It might be. I mean, it looks like that kind of movie. So yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too by threading this needle between it's a kid aimed reboot, but it could also be canonical because it's sort of the origin story, and
Yeah.
we've only gotten bits and pieces of the origin story. I think Bumblebee came closest to it, but so yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'll see it in theaters, but I'll see it at some point.
Steve Buscemi as Starscream. That's a little bit entertaining. I'm kind of looking forward to that.
But I think that also gives you an idea of the tone they're going for. It's
Exactly.
not.
Yeah. Hello, fellow kids. That's not
That'll
the
be
same.
disappointing. I will be disappointed if it is disappointing because I had such affection for Beasts.
Yes. Yeah, we got that one at least.
Yeah. Bruno, not to be forgotten, what's the producer's booth bumping about?
So I got a few picks, but most of them are not on this list. But I know that they come. I'm pretty sure they come out in September.
Those are
This is
usually
not a
the most
comprehensive
interesting
list, so yeah, no, please feel free to shoot from the
I
hip.
am going to do my best to make sure I'm going in chronological order. Yes. So coming out September 13th, we got the 4:30 movie. And it's okay that this isn't on the list because this is Kevin Smith's latest movie, and he just announced it like completely out of the blue.
Fathom event.
And yeah, no, like
it's a Kevin Smith sequel to the 420 movie.
Exactly, it's a Kevin Smith sequel to the 420 movie. It's part of the Clerks universe most likely, and it's probably just going to be like another one of those like really irreverent but also like clever indie flicks that will probably stand out in some people's. In whoever's list, they do end up going to go watch it, and they do end up going to go see it. I do believe this was entirely filmed inside of his theater in New Jersey. Is that where it is? I forget.
It's definitely in New Jersey. I don't know the town.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not going to say the town, but I do believe the whole movie was filmed inside of his theater, and that's just like an entertaining concept. It's something that I'm excited for. Coming out that same weekend is Speak No Evil, which is a remake from a European film, and I believe it's being directed by the same director, where it's going to be starring
Norwegian or something.
Yes, right. And it's going to be starring. Let's see, there's James McAvoy, Jason Blum, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy, and like basically what just seems to be a a family and their like a couple and their kid being invited to a friendly couple's house, and shit goes whack. I've heard that it's one of James McAvoy's best performances. I've heard that it's one of the best like.
This is that. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the one I've been getting
Mhm.
bombarded with ads
Mhm.
for at my local cinema.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys know anything about the original?
I do. I've seen the original. Yes.
Yeah, so it's gonna be. I haven't seen it, but it's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, no, I recommend the original for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But yeah, I think this could be a very big pick. I think I'm not sure if it could beat Alien Romulus, but it would probably be very high up on the horror leaderboards this year. Come the end of the year.
Based on the very few things I've seen, McAvoy looks like he's locked into split mode in that one,
Yeah.
which I am not complaining about at all. Because
McAvoy is very interesting. He's when he's playing a villain, I feel like he was always cast as a good guy because of the way he looks. And
yeah,
his villain era is more interesting.
I agree 100%. Keep your Charles Xavier, give me Split Man for the rest of time.
The Beast.
McAvoy. The Beast, of course. How could I forget that he's called the Beast?
I got another
also,
movie about
Bruno,
robots real quick. What's up?
Oh, I just wanted to. I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know we're gonna get emails. I just wanted to. It's the View Askew-averse. That's what the Clerks world is called. Is the View Askew-averse.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
I couldn't. I think it's a production company thing. I couldn't possibly tell you why. It's just one of those stupid things that's in my brain.
I dislike that very much.
Yeah, no. Talk to me about this Pedro robot.
Pedro robot, the wild robot.
Is that I thought that's where you were going.
Yes, absolutely. No.
Yes, yeah.
I don't even know much about this. I know that it's based off of a book, but I saw the trailer and I started tearing up. And that
It looks so cute.
And that made me want to go watch the movie. Like in a world where I was wishing that I could actually get like some decent nostalgic feelings from Transformers, I actually see that I'm probably going to be getting some deep nostalgic feelings to Wall-E or Iron Giant. I'm looking very forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
The same day that drops, we have the Hellboy movie. Why is this not on your list, Ryley?
Because I think it's going to suck, Bruno.
It is no. This is being written by the man who wrote Hellboy.
I understand Mignola's got his pen out and he's here to go to work. I'm glad you have faith. Talk to me more about it. Convince me. Sell me.
No, because like I've seen the interviews with Jack Kesey, and he just like I understand he doesn't match up at all to what we saw from Ron Perlman, or if we dare to compare what we saw from David Harbour. But
don't let's not say we. I didn't see anything from David Harbour.
But it reminded me a lot of what I read from Hellboy, because Hellboy was never really like satire. There was never really like any comedy in that. It was always meant to be like a thriller, a horror mystery, and that's
dark horror vibes. Yeah.
And that's the vibes that I got off of this trailer. Not only did I get those vibes off of the trailer, I got indie horror vibes off of the trailer, which I think is the exact way you want to go with Hellboy for like the level of horror that this story tends to be, versus the contrast with the campiness that his character is just on appearance. It's alone. And I think they're making it work very well. I agree that the first trailer did not do wonders, but the second trailer was like miles and miles better. But yeah.
I agree with that.
Oh boy, September 27th.
I will be, listen, as with all things that I think look bad, I will be so happy to find out I am wrong, if and when I am wrong. I would love a good Hellboy movie. Since my decision to not engage with the David Harbour film, I have got way more into the comics. I have a bunch of the collected editions of both the long arcs and the one-off short stories. I really like Mike Mignola as both a writer and an artist. I think the way that he draws Hellboy and his world is more of an indication of what that universe should be than anything I've ever seen on the screen. So I don't disagree with you that his involvement is like the hey.
Just a Mike Mignola cover.
No, I was McConaugheying you. I wasn't saying get it out of here. I was saying look at this beauty. So I think the way he interprets that world is so beautiful, and I agree with you. This looks like it's got indie horror vibes. The snake thing in the trailer really was the first time in a minute I've been like, ooh, Hellboy movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah. If it rocks, I'll be overjoyed.
Have you read Crooked Man?
Yes, I have. Yes. Speaking of comics adaptations that may flop, Deepak, we started getting reviews today for Arthur Fleck and his big beautiful sequel. Where's your head at, Harley, my love? How we feeling?
I'm excited for it. I think I had a more positive, or at least more impactful experience with the first one than maybe I know Ryley and I talked right after it.
Mm, hmm
Yeah, and so I am looking forward to this. I think there's a lot of things about it that are going to turn the more sort of comic book driven minds away, but make it more interesting just as a movie. I'm like the musical aspect of it, Lady Gaga being in it. Those are the things that interest me the most. Mm, Here's the thing: we all know that the first Joker, they kind of took the Taxi Driver King of Comedy bit and really took it as far as they could go. I'm hoping there's more of an original bent to what Phillips is doing this time around, now that we don't have the forcefulness of the Joaquin Phoenix performance to really wow us, and we don't have. I'm sure Gaga's performance will be great. It'll be great to see her as Gaga, or sorry, as Harley Quinn. But we've also seen her as an actress too several times, so we know what she's capable of. So without those kinds of things to really kind of, for lack of a better term, hide behind, I would like to see what Phillips can do with the material and kind of see. I want this movie to justify its existence. I didn't think we needed a sequel. They talked a long time for after the first one came out that they weren't going to make one. Of course, money dictated that they
Money
would, and
talks,
they
baby.
did. Right. So here we are 5 years later, and I just want to see what. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see it. I have no indicate. I can't tell if it'll be good or bad, but it'll definitely be interesting, and I'll take interesting these days.
Did you read the review written by, I'll say it, friend of the show, David Ehrlich, that you sent me earlier today?
I skimmed the review, and his review was negative, but it was not like, oh my God, it's a disaster. It was more in sort of a way that was trying to engage with it, which I thought was good.
It was.
Um,
I would
yeah.
encourage people to read his review, if only because I think he writes tremendously well about film, and I always learn more about
Hmm.
film when I read Ehrlich. I think he's so smart, which is why I love his one and so far only appearance on this show has been talk about Elden Ring. What he sort of, yeah, that was pre-Bruno. What he sort of outlined in his review, I'll just go real broad. But he sort of indicated that for his tastes, both the musical component and the Gaga component were more put on the back bench than he would have liked. And I think that
Okay.
that's sort of a thing that's making me go, oh, because I'm with you. Like, those are the things that I'm like, oh, let's see what this bullshit is. Like, this seems
Right.
wild. You know, the first
Yeah.
one, right? Everybody said it's going to be Scorsese doing a comic book thing, and then we watch it and we were like, oh, it's Scorsese doing a comic book thing. Or, like, it's a comic book thing in the
Right, but I
style of
think what
Scorsese.
carries it over is the Oscar-winning aspects. It's the performance and the
Yes. No,
music, and I
100%.
think. But what I want this movie to do, and I think Ehrlich speaks to that, and I just didn't really get around to it, is sort of, again, why are we here? What are we
Yeah,
doing here? Is this
yeah.
just another empty homage? Is it just kind of an exercise? Or are we, because the thing is, comic book fandom or any kind of fandom will always say, don't give us the same thing over and over again, give us something new. Then
hmm
when they get something new, they go, oh, we didn't mean like this. Just go back to doing what you were doing before.
Yeah.
And I like that for DC, for all their ups and downs, they've still kind of tried to push. I think Marvel is doing that in their own way, but it's not a them versus them sort of thing. It's just we can get a million Deadpools and Wolverines, which are fun movies, that were all tremendously enjoyable. But we also need some of these to really kind of keep pushing things at the edges to see where all we can go. So good or bad, it'll at least be interesting, like I said. And that's why I'm a
100%.
little nervous about what you're saying, Ehrlich said, because I was hoping those would be more of a focus.
I'm he is also a very negative critic in general, right?
Yeah,
Which,
That's
yeah.
as a self-hating movie
But
fan
that's why I
myself,
don't
I
read into
appreciate
the
that about him.
negativity
But
that much. Yeah,
yeah,
that's why I wasn't reading into the negativity too much, because he says that about pretty much everything. But this was
yeah,
not as negative as I've seen him be about some other stuff where I was like, oh, he
that I really
really hates
enjoyed.
this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we'll see. Bruno, anything on the comics? I mean, you're just flashing around that big old beautiful Joker smashes the shit out of our boy Robin with a crowbar.
hell yeah.
You got any
Because like
thoughts about?
I saw all the reviews like you guys did. I set in like one of the headlines into the chat earlier today, and like I only looked at a skim because I only wanted to get the general consensus. I didn't want to read too much into it. But yeah, it was pretty generally mixed. But at the same time, that's the same thing that happened to the last movie. And the initial
Mhm.
reactions were very generally mixed. I looked it up today, and even today on Metacritic, it has a 59%.
Yeah, it's like a 62 on Rotten Tomatoes, the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I'm not expecting everyone to give good, stellar reviews on this at all, especially with the musical aspect. But like, honestly, let me tell you something about me. If you have a comic book movie, I'm buying a ticket. If you have a musical movie, I'm buying a fucking ticket. You have a comic
Mhm.
book musical movie, I have the whole row.
Yeah,
It's just me
I'm
in the
hopeful.
theater.
I'm right there with you.
I'm very hopeful. I hope it'll be good. Bruno, I'm going to stick with you here for a second, only because I know this is one that has made your radar, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are about the Palme d'Or winning Anora.
Oh God. I first heard you speak about Honora like earlier in the year when it basically, I believe it was when it was up for the Palme d'Or, and at that moment I wasn't too familiar with any of the work from this man who I'm currently blanking on his name. I'm so sorry.
Sean Baker.
Sean
Sean
Baker.
Baker.
Thank you very much. And then about a month or two later, my girlfriend asked me if we could watch the Florida Project, and I had no idea what that
Yeah.
was. And then the title showed directed by Sean Baker on the screen. I was like, okay, I need to pay attention now. And that was like easily probably one of the best movies, if not the best movie that I've seen this year, even though it didn't come out this year, and one of the best movies that I've seen, just period. It's just the way that he subtly plays through everything while still using like a high level of focus on the set pieces, the coloring, the aspect ratio, all of that. It got me very excited to see what else he could do with Lenora. And I also have what was it, Licorice Pizza on my list as well to watch later this year. And yeah, I'm just very excited. I don't know much about Sean Baker, as I already mentioned, but just based off of Florida Project, I am expecting nothing short of stellar.
Now, you should watch Licorice Pizza, but that is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Oh, excuse me.
But you should watch it. It's very good.
Sean Baker did Red Rocket.
He did Red Rocket, is his most recent
That's
flick. And
that's
he did
what I was
something.
confusing.
What was he? What did he do before Florida Project? Deepak, did he have a movie before Florida Project? Not that they achieved that level of acclaim, obviously.
He
But
did, but I'm blanking. Florida Project put him on the map, and then there was Red Rocket, and then
yeah,
Anora.
he is so fascinated with,
right.
and I think Anora, from everything I've read, adheres to this sort of the grungier side of humanity, but not quite in a Safdie brother way.
It's like the day in day out, like living in almost poverty. It's like how does this happen?
He's interested in sex workers. He's interested
It's
in.
very like Moonlight. If you remember, like the
Yes.
Mahershala Ali aspects of Moonlight, those scenes.
It's slice of life, but it's not like a good slice of life.
Yeah, he makes movies about people that we don't often see on screen with such verisimilitude, right? Like he is very honest and true to life about what a large swath of the American population, how they live.
Yeah.
And Red Rocket deals with it differently than the Florida Project did, but it's fascinating to see him be able to work in that milieu in a way that connects with people, right? Like a lot of directors might want to, play in, to use a turn of phrase, play in the muck that way, right? And kind of get turned away as being, like a B film or kind of schlocky or something. But Baker does it again and again in a way that just connects and is very riveting, I think, to a lot of people. Actually, Bruno, I don't know that this is what happened in your mind, but I thought that Red Rocket was going to get a lot of the weird backlash that Licorice Pizza actually ended up getting for the relationship dynamic between the two leads. So I don't know if those wires.
I think that may have been it.
But all right. So then I want to call out, and I don't have release dates in front of me, so I may inadvertently be taking us into October here with mine. But
That's fine.
Smile 2 is a sequel that I did not expect to happen. And I really, really enjoyed that first movie. Mild trigger warnings. As a person who has dealt with suicidal ideation a lot in my life, Smile really, I felt was really, really visceral, but also incredibly entertaining. Like, it wasn't beating you over the head with anything, but there were deeper themes to it beyond just a Ring style, you see this thing and then you're doomed to die, right? It seems to be combating sort of, I think, the thing that a lot of people grapple with in their life, right? Of having an interiority that you don't feel comfortable sharing with the world, feeling like you need to put on a happy face and just show up in a certain kind of way for other people all the time. And it did that while also scaring the absolute shit out of me. The visual effect of just a really kind of upsettingly grim smile on someone's face was an incredible tool in that movie's arsenal that was so much better than, we're talking about the Tim Burton CGI earlier, right? Any kind of goopy monster they could have thrown at me, right? And I even sort of expected, well, there is sort of a weird ending that has a goopy monster, but they didn't indulge in that as much as I anticipated. And even like Your Men, right, Deepak, that the COVID movie by our guy Eggers.
Yep.
No, was that an Eggers picture?
It was by Civil War. What's his name?
Alex Garland.
Yeah. Oh God.
Alex Garland.
Yeah, thank you, Alex Garland.
Alex Garland. Thank you. Yes. That sort of indulged in weird goopy. Like I expected more of that ending where like, oh, it's a big monster, and no, sort of the monster in that movie is like society's expectations for how you're supposed to be, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So I hope that the sequel sticks with that. I hope that Smile 2 has that same level of substance. Of course, sequels always sort of go to bat with that problem of how much of the original substance can you hold on to, or were we just really taken by how upsetting that face was? But yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. Bruno, you look like you're ready to hop in here. Go crazy.
Without going into spoilers, did Smile 1 end in a way that was supposed to have a sequel, or did this just happen because of box office?
No. So, without spoilers, they're doing it anthology style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Same monster, different people.
Interesting. Cool.
All right. So next up on our list, I'm kind of looking around here. I know there's some stuff other people are going to want to grab. So let me start my section off here with a little bit of an anecdote, which is that I was talking to my mom the other day, and I was talking about Rings of Power, and I was talking about season 2 coming up and explaining how excited I was. And I was saying that the thing with Rings of Power, as much as I really, really loved the first season, which I did, come at me, top in my mentions, I will ruin you with Tolkien knowledge. The first season sort of
pro Rings of Power here.
Yes. The first season sort of ended kind of where I expected the show to start, right? Like in the finale of the first season, here was Sauron, here were the 3 elven rings, here was a conflict between the armies of darkness and the last stand of elves and men. And we were teetering on a cliff of whether or not Sauron was going to be able to take power and kind of fool Celebrimbor and all this stuff. I was explaining all this to my mom, and she said, and I was not expecting this to come out of my mother's mouth, she said, I feel like that every time I watch Venom. And I found out that my mom is perhaps the world's biggest Venom fan. So
I did not know this is where you're going this.
Yeah, no. And so I did not at all expect for my mom to be a huge Venom fan, but I told her, do you know the 3rd one's coming out? And there's a Venom horse.
Yeah.
So I wanted to chat just about Venom: The Last Dance, which I feel like is going to, I'm very hopeful, is going to be more in the first vein, or the vein of the first film, rather than the second. Not that I thought the second was so much worse than the first one. This is sort of going back to, I like movies that aren't necessarily always the greatest things in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But it looks like it's going to be a fun, rollicking time. I feel like, a lot of the marketing, there were a lot of jokes for a while that what we really wanted was just a romantic comedy between Eddie Brock and Venom. And it sort of feels like in a lot of ways that's what Last Dance might be delivering on in some capacity. There's been at least one shot that I've seen pop up in a lot of trailers in which Venom and Eddie Brock are like dancing in what looks like a ballet hall or something like that. So I think it looks interesting. I think it might be one of the wilder comic book installments that we've got in a while. And like you were talking about with crossover comics, Bruno, right? Like a lot of times what I find appealing about comic books is their willingness to just do insane shit because we're all on board for it, right?
Yes.
Like we're just here to have a crazy, weird, good time. And I sort of feel like Venom: The Last Dance is going to deliver on crazy good time.
I agree. No, 100%. I am definitely one of those people that when the Venom first came out, when the first Venom movie came out, I had expectations that unfortunately were not met. I was expecting a completely different take on the character. And
Mm.
then the second movie came out, and when I first watched it, I thought it was worse than the first one. Hold that thought. But after a while, I just sat with like my thoughts and like why I disliked it, and it mainly just boiled down to that first movie and how like I had these certain expectations. So I took those expectations and I just threw them in the garbage. I picked up a couple of goofy Venom comics. I read Dark Web. I think I've lost enough brain cells at this point. So I went back and I rewatched the first one, and then I rewatched the second one, and I enjoyed the second one a lot more on the second go around because it was the first one. They tried too hard to struggle they struggled. They actively struggled between being the like serious, like almost horror take on the character that I was expecting, and the more goofy buddy cop character that we've seen in more recent runs of the comics.
Yeah.
And then the second movie came out, and it was just Andy Serkis fully embracing the goofy side of the character. And once I watched that the second time, and I had that in mind, I enjoyed it a lot more, and it was a lot better for me. And so with that, I think I'm with your mom that I'm very, very excited for Last Dance. It's just like everything at one point, I get the horse and all, but at the very beginning of the trailer, Venom just like launches Tom Hardy off of a wall, and he just hits another guy with a drop kick. And I just think that's just like top notch fight choreography, honestly.
Yeah, 100%. In that first movie, I'm kind of meditating on your point. I'm not a big Rob Liefeld guy in general.
Is it the theme?
And it's not even. It's the aesthetic. Like I just feel like his vibe is like so dedicated to machoism in a way that I can't necessarily dial in with. And in a similar way, and this might not even be fair, but in a similar way, I feel about Mr. McFarlane, right? So Venom in the comics was never really my thing. I will admit that I am not as much of a Marvel historian as I am a DC historian. But so by the time I had finally come to the Marvel Comics universe, Venom had already gone through his era of being the evil Spider-Man and had become another hero, and we had created Carnage to be the evil Spider-Man. And I just never really saw the need to like have Venom in my life. I just never had dialed into it that way. And so when I watched the first movie, and I think Deepak agrees with this, it felt to me like Tom Hardy was the only guy who knew the movie he was in. You know, like everybody else I felt like was trying to do like big, heavy, serious, like we're telling a dark tale about a twisted soul. And Tom Hardy was like, I'm just going to hop in this lobster tank, if you guys don't mind. Can we reinforce the lobster tank so I can get in it? Because I would like to be in the lobster tank. And I will, like Tom Hardy has my undying love for crawling into that lobster tank in the first Venom movie, because I was just rolling. I thought it was the funniest thing I had seen. I understood exactly where he was. Him doing the voice of Venom, I thought was a really well-informed choice that has paid dividends in the sequel. So yeah, I hope this one's a little wacky. I'm here for wacky Venom trilogy capper. And then I hope we all clean our hands and walk away from it. I don't need to see Tom Hardy in Infinity Wars. I am highly doubtful that wish will be fulfilled for me. Or not Infinity Wars, Doomsday or whatever that one's called now.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
Tom Holland's going to get the black suit, but it's not going to be like that.
Yeah. Well, we that post credits from whichever.
Let's not digress from this episode.
Was.
Let's just move on. Deepak,
right.
what are you excited for?
So we're going through to the end of the year now.
Yeah. Whatever you got. Whatever you got.
Yeah, Gladiator 2 is a big one. First one's obviously big for I think our generation. Although Ryley, I know you said you haven't seen it yet. I look forward to getting your thoughts on it.
I know.
Yeah, that's a surprising.
I think that was the
but,
first rated R movie my dad showed me.
Mine was 7.
Yeah, Gladiator 2, good, looks good. Denzel's back, nice to see him. What's his face? Last of Us is in it. That's also good to see. Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
And what else do we have? Lord of the Rings is a big one, obviously. animated, sort of anime style. I didn't watch the trailer. I saw some stills. Looks fine. I did see that the trailer apparently tries to connect to the movies, has footage from like two
Trailer has a
towers
lot of
and
Jackson
concrete.
footage in it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's interesting. I almost feel like they're maybe doing the kind of Tales of the Black Freighter thing that they did with the long cut of Watchmen, sort of like they want this to be something that's cut in between or interspersed. And I
The
think that is indicative of the Warner Brothers Middle Earth strategy, is to just kind of take the core Jackson movies and branch off of them as much as possible, kind of doing the Disney spin-off, filling in what did they do when they were looking for Gollum, and then we're going to get stuff. We're going to get the connective tissue, I think, in between Hobbit and Lord of the Rings at some point too, probably with 3 movies of its own. They just have to find a Baggins character to hang it on. And I mean, Disney's got a lot going on. I want to pay a little bit of attention to Mufasa. I think we all rightly and to some extent wrongly make fun of the 2019 Lord of the Rings, Lion King animated quote unquote remake that they did, or live action quote unquote. If you're going to have to continue a billion-dollar franchise like Lion King, I guess you could do worse than getting Barry Jenkins to come in and direct a movie about brothers,
Yeah.
really. And I guess more to the point, I guess because they're African, there's like a black thing there that I guess Barry Jenkins has made a career out of telling black stories, right? So I don't know. I mean, that fascinates me. I don't know what, I haven't seen the trailers for Mufasa. I don't know what to expect, other than I assume it's going to be like Transformers 1. They're going to start off as friends that become
Right.
enemies by the end of it. But yeah, I mean, I have no idea what to think of that. I really
I'll
don't.
I'll just say on War of the Rohirrim, Deepak. So that one's going to be set way before Rings,
Right.
and it is the story of the man Helm
It's
Hammerhand.
Helm Hammerhand.
Yeah.
So when I saw that they were tying in Two Tower stuff, I thought they maybe changed it to now be about what the Riders of Rohan were doing while they were cast out.
No, so the hook is that I want to say I've forgotten her name, but to be painfully honest, I don't know if I ever knew her name. The woman who plays Éowyn
Miranda Otto. Yeah.
Thank you, Miranda Otto. She is like I think it's probably like a bookend narration, sort of like what we got.
Like what Frodo was doing in The Hobbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So she's providing that for the War of the Rohirrim. But I really think that mostly the Jackson footage just is there to kind of inform people, like, this is within the canon of these movies that you love, right? Rings of Power, as we discussed, we alluded to, has had its sticking points with certain
it's definitely not been universally acclaimed the way the movie
fans. We're doing a lot of air quotes here. Make sure you go to YouTube so you can see where we stick them all, because it doesn't necessarily translate on audio. But yeah, I think that is there to kind of signal to those people that this is the Jackson canonical picture. It'll be interesting. The animation certainly isn't a turnoff for me, but I could see a world where people are going, why would I go see an animated Lord of the, like think of it as the Bakshi movies or something, which obviously it isn't.
Yeah, it kind of looks the way that like DC has been doing their direct-to-video stuff for a long time, but I mean, it looks a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
The only other movie I had on the list, did you guys already talk with Venom about Kraven?
No, let's talk about Kraven and his big hunt.
Yeah, so Kraven is a big R-rated hunter guy who was supposed to hunt earlier this year and is now hunting.
He was supposed to hunt last year,
in the middle of.
He's been trying to hunt for such a long time, guys.
It's been a while.
Wants to get his hands on that spider.
But they suddenly decided to drop him in between Sonic, Mufasa, Lord of the Rings. Moana's not far ahead of that. There's Nosferatu, which is arguably going after the same demographic if it's R-rated and meant for young males. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not here to do the box office analysis. I don't think it'll do well, but I'm glad it's R-rated. I'm glad that they have a real director in J.C. Chandor. And I like the cast: Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe, Ariana DeBose. They have interesting actors, and I'm kind of just, maybe it's the Bond fan kind of holding out hope for Aaron Taylor Johnson's sake that the movie does well. But I mean, yeah, we'll see.
I think that the smartest decision that they have made with that movie is to give it a lot of breathing room from Madam Web, right? And which the Sony insistence. No, that's fair. the absolute insistence by Sony that every spider villain needs to have some interaction with the blood of some animal is
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is continuing to make me roll my eyes. But the closer we get to the what seems to be now final Craven release date, and the more I see of it, the more confidence I have in it. I at least hope it'll be a good action movie. Aaron Taylor Johnson is far from being my favorite actor, but I feel like the more stuff I see him in, he continues to move up a little bit in my book every time I see him. I think that the chameleon will probably come into play in this
Right.
movie in a big way. I'm curious if
Is
Sony
it the same? Is it the same actor? Is it Michael Mando?
I don't
No.
know,
No,
to
no,
tell
no.
you the truth. I only know that the chameleon is Craven's brother
Yeah.
in the comics.
Yeah.
So
He's in the
um,
movie. I'm blanking on who's playing him.
okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Sony is still interested in assembling their own Sinister Six or not. You know, after No Way Home, obviously there was a lot of mumbling about whether or not Andrew Garfield was going to put those tights back on for Sony, and whether or not that would
Oh,
actually
no,
be
he was.
legal. But yeah, I don't. Craven seems good. I want to call out a movie that Deepak kind of just. I mean, Deepak just cruised through the rest of our list there, but Nosferatu obviously has me real keened up, not just as a Dracula fan, but also as a Robert Eggers fan.
Yep.
I love his fascination with period specific mythos and his seeming obsession with like the stories we tell ourselves. I feel like that's kind of been the Deepak say it with me interlinked kind of thread between all of his movies has been, you know, fables and mythology,
Mm-hmm.
and to see him take on as Willem Dafoe says in the trailer, the vampire is exciting to me, and there are so many shots in that trailer that are just straight from the original Nosferatu. This is probably going to be the reason, and honestly, it's insane that I haven't done this yet, given all of my weird particular predilections. But this will probably be the reason I see the '70s Nosferatu directed by Herzog, which I've never caught. I've seen the original, but I've never seen the first remake. But I suspect I will watch both in the weeks leading up to the release of this one.
Sure.
I'm just so amped, so amped for Nosferatu. I remember being disappointed when Pattinson wasn't able to do it because he had his Batman commitments, and I think that the final product looks amazing. I've been dialed into this movie basically since it was announced he was going into production on it. I think it's going to be an exciting end of the year for me between that and another theatrical Lord of the Rings release. But I also do want to call out, although Bruno, maybe I'm stepping on your turf here.
No, don't do it. Defy gravity, bitch. Do it.
No. I couldn't be less interested in that piece of shit.
Shut up.
Wait, what is this? What is
Well,
this?
he was thinking Wicked, but he and I were at the.
That's what I thought you were going to go for.
No,
too.
Bruno and I were hanging out recently, and I was talking about how I hate Wicked just as a play, as a story. I'm so uninterested in Wicked the movie. I'm sure I will see it.
I'm currently writing
Sonic
up my
3.
2 weeks notice to NIHF. Give me 1 second.
Sonic
3. I'm
Hedgehog
deleting my.
We need a lot more than 2 weeks. We need a lot more than 2 weeks from you.
I think that there are a lot of folks who are probably between mine and Deepak's age and Bruno's age who are deeply, deeply shadow pilled. Because Shadow was sort of he was the Venom of the Sonic universe, right? Let's call it what it is. Like they hit a point where they said, what if we just had an evil Sonic that looked exactly like Sonic, but he was a bad guy? And everybody went, yes, more please, thank you.
He was Vegeta. He was Vegeta in Sonic
Yep.
universe.
Yep, he was. And he's being voiced by Keanu, which only adds, in my opinion. I have not seen the first 2 Sonic movies. I was late to the table on them, but I did watch the Knuckles Paramount series earlier this year, and to be honest, I fell in love with it. It made me really want to watch the Sonic movies. Last night when I was scrolling for something to watch, moments before I remembered that I could now watch Twilight of the Warriors Walled In, I almost watched Sonic on Netflix. I might watch it tonight. I really want to catch up on those movies because of how much I loved the Knuckles TV show. I basically did it all in one sitting. Like I sat down one morning, I went, oh, I like Knuckles. He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Play, and then I stood up like 8 episodes later. So yeah, I'm weirdly excited for the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie, and the idea that they are sort of fully embracing the corner they've backed themselves into with the Dr. Robotnik Eggman thing, with now having Jim Carrey just play both roles as 2 different characters, makes me laugh really hard. I think the prosthetics on him for the Eggman portion of that character looks really, it's what I expected that character to look like the first time. So in some ways, we're back in Sonic Teeth territory.
I rewatched those last 20 seconds of that trailer at least 30 times. Just those last 20 seconds.
Yeah. Jim Carrey, retired actor, unless he ever has to put on the Dr. Robotnik costume, in which case he's back, baby.
That's another thing. I just love how everyone, at least as far as Jim Carrey, his assistant, whose actor I'm blanking, and all the voice cast, they just look like they're just here to have fun.
Yeah.
Like, I can hear the smiles in Idris Elba's voice when he goes, I kind of want to fight him.
Yeah, kind of want to fight him. Yeah, exactly. And that is absolutely what I took away from the Knuckles TV series, was like, this is just a good, fun time with interesting, silly characters who are like they're aliens, I guess, but they're the video game characters who live in the real world, who have to deal with real problems, but they deal with them by having video game powers, and that makes me laugh, and it's fun and silly.
And they're really just running through Sonic Adventure 2, like, at least based off of what we see in the trailer.
Yeah, which was an all-timer for me.
Exactly.
I got obsessed with that game. All right, Bruno, talk to me about Elphaba.
Shut up. Listen.
No,
Wicked is going to be good, okay?
I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it won't be good for people who like Wicked.
I don't even need to go on a tangent to talk about how much I think Wicked's going to be great, and how much, even it being a part 1, it's going to work. Just trust me, it's going to work. I want to talk about, why do people keep marketing movies as non-musicals? I meant to bring it up back during Joker Folie à Deux, where both Todd Phillips and now Lady Gaga has gone on record saying that it's not a musical, and then went on to describe it as a fucking musical.
Right. It's not a musical, so just sometimes characters break out into song when they can't express their emotions through dialogue. What the fuck are you talking about, Todd Phillips?
And then going back to Wicked, maybe the second trailer gave us a little bit of a good inkling that it was going to be a musical, but anyone who's not familiar with the source material isn't going to catch that. They're just going to be like, oh, that's a cool sounding song.
I mean, Mean Girls from was that this year? Mean Girls, Bruno? I mean, it was the same thing.
Yeah,
the whole point of that remake was, we're doing the musical, not the movie, but they advertised it as a remake of the movie. It's ridiculous.
I did not want to watch it at all. I didn't watch it until 2 months later when someone told me it was a remake of the musical.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you, and I don't just look. I'm going to take the semi bit I'm doing and put it to the side for a minute. I 100% think it'll work. I think you end the movie with Defying Gravity, and that is a relatively full story in the event that you're not shooting them Jackson style, which I think they probably are, right? But I have no evidence for that. I think part 2 is probably predestined at this point, but this is the exact same. Honestly, this is what I have the bigger problem with, if I'm honest, is it's the Ghost Protocol problem. It's the, what was our other, Dune? It's our Dune problem, right? Where they're not advertising it as part 1 of 2. And
I think they did, though.
Dead Reckoning. Yeah. No, they haven't.
No,
and I'm trying to find an answer for Riley's question now, whether they've done any production on part 2, which I thought they had done the live action stuff, and they haven't done the CG or something like that.
But I think it will be. I mean, there is a case to be made that Wicked could be the biggest box office hit of the year. I do not think that they are playing to their strengths in that way. If I was cutting the ad for this movie, I would show people singing.
Yeah.
There is no reason that anyone who is a fan of The Wizard of Oz is going to be turned off by the idea of people singing in a movie.
They did the same thing with Wonka also, and it goes back to what you were saying about it being a bad marketing campaign. I remember the first trailer, or the first time I saw any footage of this being a Super Bowl commercial. Why would you launch a trailer for Wicked during the Super Bowl? Because you're getting non-men watching it typically
Right.
more than
It's
a
a
normal football game? I don't know.
it's an interesting question. Now, if I can just take 20 seconds to get on my soapbox. I
Get
have a
on it.
similar problem with Wicked that I have with Rent, which is just the amount of overexposure that I have had to that show. Like, Rent was everywhere when I was a kid. It was a cultural phenomenon. My family had the soundtrack. Like, I knew every word to every song in Rent before I had ever seen Rent, the movie or the production. And with Wicked, I think the first time I saw it, I was really taken by what I felt was the cleverness of the entire story. I think the way it fills in backstory for Wizard of Oz is quite compelling. I think it accomplishes its mission of changing your perspective on that entire film once you've seen Wicked. But I've seen, like, this is just a personal experience thing. Like, I feel like every woman I ever dated took me to see Wicked. Like, I've just seen that thing so many times. And at this point, it's like when I was a kid and I could just like sit in the car and just in my brain watch Shrek from start to finish. Like, I feel like I could just tell you every beat of Wicked right now. But at the same time, like I say, I'll go see it. I don't know. Who cares? It's gonna be big. It's gonna be high production. It's gonna look cooler than what I've seen on the stage. And to be honest, the stage production is quite impressive. How they do the Wizard is quite impressive. I was honestly shocked that in the trailer, it looks like they are taking their cues on how to do the Wizard from the stage show.
Exactly.
Which
That's what got me excited.
The stage show had to find an interesting shortcut to figure out a way because they couldn't project a dude's face onto a column of fire. But now the movie says, great, that's what our Wizard looks like. Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard. That seems interesting to me. Ariana Grande is a massive talent. Like there is on paper nothing to complain about other than I'm just like, I've seen this stupid thing so many times. I don't want to see it again.
Sure.
But that's a me thing. That is not a movie problem. It's a Ryley problem, and I'm fully willing to admit.
And
yes,
for anyone,
I think
for anyone wondering, part 2 is already in post production.
great, good,
So it is happening.
as it should be.
Yeah.
Because you need to strike while the if I was them, I would resurrect Matrix Resurrections, Matrix Reloaded that thing.
This is why I thought that it was being
We
marketed.
saw what happened with Horizon.
This is why I thought it was being marketed as part 1. It's because John Chu did announce like years ago that he was writing it as 2 movies and he was going to be filming it back to back as 2 movies.
That's the other thing. It's John Chu, right? Like, again, on paper, I should be all in. Like, Chu's amazing.
Yeah, but his last movie bombed. I mean, you're all in, but yeah.
What did he do after Crazy Rich Asians?
In the Heights.
In the Heights was amazing. Shut up.
That's right.
I'm not saying it was a bad movie. It just underperformed.
Okay.
But that was a COVID thing, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, guys. My Broadway side is showing.
No, that's it's and we celebrate it and we love it and we're here for it, Bruno. This is a space where you can defy all the gravity you want here, buddy.
We're very pro musical here. Yeah,
No,
I'm just saying, as far as like the marketing push or maybe him not having influence, it's because his last one with the same studio cost him some money.
This is why it is insane that they're not marketing it as a musical, is because they were, I think the Hollywood perception is it is Wicked. People who love the musical know what it is and they will show up for it. And maybe we can trick a couple rubes into buying tickets not knowing it's a musical. That is the wrong way to go about it.
But it's like say, it's Wizard of Oz. They know it's the same way that Wonka was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We know that they're coming off of musicals. I don't understand why they're hiding it or why they think they need to hide it because people would already know anyway. Then what's the point? What are you hiding?
I think if you embrace it, you are more likely to draw an audience that says, oh, look, they're excited about it.
Right.
And if you're hiding it, I think you're giving people a reason to be suspicious. All right.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the rest of the movies coming out this year. I mean, obviously there's going to be more that we'll talk about and stuff, but that's a little preview for you as the clock turns over to autumn here. We're glad you stuck through it with us all the way. We want to just hit a couple quick things before we go here. I know we said it at the top of the show, but make sure you like and subscribe to the show wherever you're finding us, whether it's on a podcast feed, on YouTube, or on our website. Those are all places that you can subscribe. If you really, really love what we do, if we're at the top of your list every week, just make sure that you're not missing an episode. We are thrilled and honored if you choose to subscribe at the $5 a month level. But even if you subscribe for free, it really helps us. And it either way, please let us know what it is you'd like us to talk about. You can hit the comments on YouTube. You can hit us up on social media. Like Deepak said, it's at Nerded Here First. Basically, wherever you are, we're there. Let us know what movies are coming out the rest of the year that you're excited about. Let us know what your thoughts are on the movies we talked about. Come after me about how much I love Rings of Power. Whatever it is you want to do, find us on social media. You can email me, Ryley@nihf.com, if that's more your speed. But let us know. We love to hear from you guys. This has been Two for the Show. Two for the Show is produced by Bruno Menezes and me, Ryley Trahan. Our art is by Wiki Rascals. Our music is by Purple Planet. Our intro is, of course, by the great Bruno Menezes, who throws those video clips in there, and they make me laugh every time. Social media is by Sterling Hayes. My co-host is Deepak Chitnis. You can follow us at Nerd Here First on all the social media. And as always, don't forget to tune in next week to hear.